Hey, welcome to Bathwinger. If you're thinking about changing careers, there's three things that you've got to get right. And if you can get these things right, you'll be successful. And if you don't, you're going to struggle. It's going to cause you a lot of problems. So, in getting ready for it, these are some things you want to think about. And I'm going to give you those three things, how I did it and how I made it work for me. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and let's roll the intro. We'll get into this.
Cruising down the highway, windows down low. Sunset paints the sky in a fiery glow. Mountains rise up, touching clouds above. Valleys below, filled with whispers of love.
Hey, if you're serious about changing careers and becoming a pilot, these are the three things that you've got to get right. And if you can get these, you'll be super successful. So let's get into it. The first one is your family. You're going to need to talk to your family. If you have a spouse, this is going to be different for everybody because not everybody's married, not everybody has kids. You've got to make this apply to you. And just as an example, I talked to my wife and kids and they were on board. And I had a friend that was getting back into aviation at the same time. And so we talked quite a bit and we both kind of took two separate ways. So I'm going to share both of those so you can see what it looks like. But we were both older, had careers in the military. We'd started flying, when we were younger and then had to walk away from it for a little while and get back into it. So when we started flying again, my friend, he was sell your soul. He had younger kids, and so he wanted to get it done as quick as possible. And currently he's a Southwest pilot right now, and so he's making a lot of money and he made it. But he made some sacrifices along the way, and that's something that put a little bit of strain on his marriage and then his relationship with his kids. And so he's enjoying the fruits of his labor now, but for a time he was working a full-time job. Then he would go flight instruct for a little while, and then he worked mosquito abatement. And so he would fly at night and then he'd wake up and do the same thing. So he basically never saw his family. And if he did, he was just a wreck. He was just a wad of dough laying around the house because he was so tired trying to recover from what he was doing. And so he busted it out, got hired on, a regional airline, and then COVID hit. And so he had some setbacks along the way, but he finally made it to Southwest Airlines. The downside, and this is the other situation that he had to think about and talk about with his family, right now he commutes. So he's got to commute to where he flies, which takes time away from home. And then he's typically gone 15 days a month where he doesn't see his family. And nothing wrong with that. Like, he's turned it into a great career. He's been there for a couple of years now, making great money, and it's a great situation for him. So he pulled that off. I decided to take a different route, and I decided that I wanted to do it and I was going to have fun with it because I had gotten so sick of the grind before that it kind of had sucked the fun out of aviation. So when I got back into it, I decided that I wasn't going to do the grind. I was going to, take it for what it was, have fun with it, start flying, just really enjoy aviation. And I wasn't going to sell my soul. So I took a little bit slower route. I didn't fly as often. Got my stuff done, started independent flight instructing, and I was flying a couple times a month. And, so it took me longer. And so that's the trade-off. Along the way, though, I rarely missed any of my kids' football games, soccer games, basketball games, any school event that they had, I was there. I'm only gone maybe one or two times a year. It seems like maybe little bit more than that, but I'm home basically every night and I see my kids every day and have a great relationship with them. In contrast, though, I'm still flying a Cirrus, still doing some independent flight instructing and not making quite a bit as much money as my friend is. And so that's the downside. So you have to decide what you want. Are you going to sell your soul, get there as quick as you can? Or are you going to, maybe do what I did, take the slower route, enjoy it, and just see what happens with it? And I think the reason that I was able to do that too was I was in a career that I didn't hate. It wasn't something where I was like, man, I've got to get out of this place. I can't stand it. I was in a job that I enjoyed. I had a good timeline. And so, you've got to look at those scenarios, make sure you have those conversations so that when, my friend, it has affected his marriage. His wife's been frustrated. They have 4 kids and she's felt like she's got to bear the burden of running them to everything and taking care of everything. And they're doing really well now, but they have had some struggles along the way with that. So the next one is money. obviously aviation is expensive, and that's something that you got to look at. You can generally find the cost online, and there's a lot of different ways that you can save money. But this is what I did when I got back into flying. I'd gotten a little bit of a bonus at work. It was about $4,000. I put that into a bank account, and then I was able to fund that with 500 additional dollars per month that I would put in, and then that would allow me to fly a certain amount of time. And because I had budgeted that amount of money, I was really motivated to try to get it to go as far as possible. So I wanted to fly as much, without using, a ton of that money, which you could burn through 500 bucks, as you know, really quick. But what I did was I started splitting flight time, and I actually found a guy, he only charged me $35 an hour to split flight time, and we would go fly for a while. He owned his own plane, and I ended up buying into that plane, and I saved a ton of money doing that. So there are some ways that you can save money. And if you're kind of on that budget, what you can spend and it's comfortable, it's not going to, really hurt you in the long run. So make sure you've got that figured out. And then the other side of the money situation is what's going to happen when you get your flight instructor license and then you have to go be a CFI. Are you going to be able to live on that money for a while until you can get an airline job? So you really kind of got to do some pre-planning with that. Maybe have some money in the bank set aside for emergencies so that you could survive a year on, and so those are a lot of things to consider. You can find a lot of information on how much people make doing what they do so that you can have, an educated decision with what you're doing to make sure that it's going to be worth your while. The last one is timeline. So I see a lot of videos. I watch a lot of aviation videos, and there's a lot of guys that kind of sell this hype like, hey, you can get this done in 90 days, you can knock it out, and you can do that. And I'm not knocking that, but it's not the reality for a lot of people. And I was one of them. I didn't have the ability to quit my job for 3 months or 6 months and whatever and go do this. Like I had obligations, bills, the house, all those things where that wasn't a reality for me. And luckily for me, I was able to look at my timeline and say, hey, I could retire from my job. I was in the military in 3 years. So if I can kind of get going, by the time I hit that 3-year mark, I'll be good to go. And so that timeline made it so that I was flying once or twice a week. It wasn't anything that was killing me, but I knew that I had 3 years to get it done. And so you've got to look at that timeline. And aviation, if you look at it, obviously, I don't need to tell you that it sucks right now. Hiring is bad, but it's not always going to be bad. But you have to be ready. So if you can have a good solid timeline, because if you set something and say, I'm going to have this done in 6 months and I'm going to be here, something might happen. So you've really got to have realistic expectations that something bad might happen, plan accordingly, but make the timeline work for you, whether that's a year, 2 years, 3 years. The sooner, in my opinion, that you can start flying and getting this going, the better. And so there you have it. I hope that helps. If you've changed careers, I'm really curious. I love hearing people's stories. So let me know in the comments how you did it, anything that you would change or do different, and go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. And until I see you next time, fly safe.